Welcome to the Ambitious Introvert Podcast, created especially for introverts, empaths, and highly sensitive entrepreneurs to help you build, grow, and scale a successful, sustainable business. I'm your host, Emma-Louise Parks, business and mindset coach for ambitious introverts. After 17 years working as an air traffic controller, the ultimate fast-paced, high-stimulus, extrovert-friendly role, my mission now is to show introverts that they too can create big results and success because of who they are, not in spite of it. I focus on introvert-friendly business and marketing strategy to help you switch overwhelm for clarity, confidence, and clients. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Ambitious Introvert Podcast. I'm Emma-Louise, and we are touching on a subject today which is, I think, quite often misunderstood in the online space, something that we will hear over and over again, like it's a bit of a buzzword, something that you know you need, but you might not really know how to go about it. And I'm really excited because today's guest is going to help us not only demystify everything to do with messaging, but give us a really simple way of distilling it down and actually starting to apply it to our own business. So, Michelle, thank you so much for joining me.
You are so welcome, Emma-Louise. I'm excited to be here with you.
So please introduce yourself to my audience and tell them a little bit about who you are and your background and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm Dr. Michelle Mazur. My area of expertise is messaging and communication. Specifically, I work with mostly expert businesses and coaches and service providers to really distill their message into the 3-word rebellion, while also using that core message to build an entire argument for their work so they know exactly what to say to grow their audience, to get people interested, to generate leads and prospects for their business, and to also know what to say to close them. So that is my business. My background is I've realized today, because I'll be turning 49 soon, that I've been in communication for over 30 years. I started as a professor. I was a professor for many years. And then I went into corporate where I was doing market research and helping basically big Fortune 500 brands communicate with their audiences in their advertising and doing research around that. And then I started my own business. And I started as a public speaking coach because that was my passion. And then I realized that I love persuasion. I love the message processing. I love figuring out, like, how do we communicate the value of what we're doing as a business owner so that it really makes people want to know more. Like, that's my passion, because I know there's so many amazing business owners out there who aren't known and are often overlooked because they don't know how to communicate what it is they do in a compelling way, especially in online marketing.
Oh, I love your passion for this. And I'm going to, just before we get into talking about what messaging actually is, there's 2 things you said there that I found really interesting. One is a client of mine, I remember her saying, I'm sick of being the best kept secret.
Mm-hmm.
That is how she felt, like more people need to know about me. And I don't know how to make that happen because she really felt like she wasn't articulating her value right as a business owner.
Yeah, I mean, I see that a lot. I mean, my people often identify with the term overlooked expert because they are incredible. They are skilled, years of experience. Their clients get great results, but they're passed over and ignored a lot of times for people who have half their experience and skill, for people who have like the shiny marketing but can't really deliver the goods. And that's
exactly how I felt when I came into the online space, because I knew nothing about sales. I knew nothing about marketing, nothing about social media, but I'd been coaching professionally for over 12 years at that point. So I was like, I know I'm a good coach. I've, got hundreds of hours and I've got all of these certifications and whatever else. But when it came to actually marketing, it's like a whole other thing. And another word that you said there that I was like, oh, this is juicy because I think it gets a bad rep is persuasion. You were like, you love persuasion.
Yeah, I taught persuasion at the university level for many years. And I think why it gets a bad rap, the way we use persuasion in the online space is like a timeshare salesman, right? It's about manipulation. It's about using these tricks and these hacks. But when people are making big purchasing decisions, like deciding to work with you, you shouldn't be relying on hacks and all of that. You should actually be building this argument for your work that allows people to retain their agency and make the best decision for themselves. That is still persuasion because you're going to present the best case you can for why people should work with you. But I feel like it's just gotten this like manipulative rap, and persuasion doesn't have to be manipulative at all. It can really be this act of service where you're like giving people the information and then letting them make the decision without like, and the offer expires in 2 minutes.
I completely agree. And when you said the word manipulation, it's like, yes, this is what it's got kind of saddled with. Like if we're persuading people, we're somehow like twisting their arm or pulling the wool over their eyes. And I had a guest on quite a few months back now who was a copywriter. And one of the things she said, and this really stuck with me, she said, if I'm writing for someone and it's for a $27 product, I will turn the persuasion right up. Absolutely. She's like, if it's a multi-5-figure investment, it's different. You don't shock someone's nervous system. You drip the information out. You make sure that they have everything they need to make an empowered decision. $27 product. Yeah, absolutely. If you've got someone's attention, you can be more persuasive than that.
Right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Like if I buy something for $27, like, if it's not that great, who cares? It was $27. But if I'm investing $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 into something, I need to be making the smartest business decision possible. And so that is that's about slowing down the process. It's about giving people the information and sometimes being honest with them and saying like, I don't think this is for you right now.
I'm laughing because my last cohort of my group program, I did that to someone. She booked a call with me and she told me where she was in business. I was like, I don't think this is for you. I think you're too far ahead. It's quite foundational, basic. And she's like, I don't think I ever really built the foundations. Like I do think. And so I was like, okay, but I'm just, making that clear. And actually it was great for her and it was really good. But on the surface, I was like, are you sure? Because, we're not just going to accept everyone into every program because it has to be the best fit for obviously them, but also for everyone else in the program.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, that was just a little aside because you said the word persuasion. However, let's get back to messaging. The highly misunderstood and misaligned term. Michelle, what is messaging, please?
Yes. And you're right. It is highly misunderstood because I have seen things where like messaging, it's your I help statement and that's all you need and you'll be good to go. Or it's your content plan. Or, it's like these, or it's just your niche. Your message is just your niche. And it's like, no, literally your message is everything you say in your business. Every time you communicate, whether that's writing a social media post, being on a podcast interview, on a sales conversation, even communicating internally with your team is a part of your message. It touches every aspect of that client journey you take people on. And so I feel like a lot of people just piecemeal it and not realizing that you need a different message for when you're just trying to get people's attention and get them to follow you or to subscribe to your email list. There's a different conversation that needs to happen when you want people to book a call with you. There's a different conversation that needs to happen when you're in the sales process. So for me, that's what messaging is. It is a comprehensive system that positions and differentiates your business while also leading people to the work you do. So literally, it is everything.
I always think of the example because obviously in the online space, a lot of people are selling like 10K months. I'll get you to 10K months. That's a big thing. Michelle is rolling her eyes for the because you don't have access to the bit. We've discussed this kind of thing before, right? But that is an outcome. And you know what I always say to clients is like, look how many people are selling that outcome, but the messaging around it is completely different. So for some people, it could be get into 10K months as a busy mum who's only got 3 hours a day to work. For someone else, it could be, you know, how to get to 10K months with ADHD. Like there are all of these different things. And
yeah,
you know, and so there's so much that comes into marketing, and it's not just talking about the outcome. Your mess, like you say, it's not the I help you do this statement.
Well, and it's like 10K months are boring. Like it's boring messaging. I don't care what you put around it. And for most people, you actually cannot promise that to your audience that you're going to get them to 10K months, because some of them you will. Some of them you absolutely will not. So I feel like with a lot of the messaging, especially around these outcomes and these income claims, it's they overpromise and then underdeliver, and then that adds to the bad rap instead of focusing on like, what is the real result of the work? What is something that I can 100% absolutely promise to every single person who works with me? And I think that is the subtle difference. And that's a way more interesting question to me. Because if I'm working with somebody on their business, yeah, I know they want to make more money. But sometimes in order to make more money, you have to play the long game. You have to lay that foundation of having a great offer, creating your message, getting like evolving and tweaking that message, getting better at marketing, like all of those things. And I feel like the 10K month, it's just like there is no silver bullet that's going to get you to 10K months.
I always say, you know, I really, really dislike these formulas. So if someone's like, hey, you know, join my program and there's this like 8-step formula that got me to 10K months, so it will get you there as well. And there's zero kind of flexibility in it. Like that's maybe fine if you're exactly the same as that person and your business is exactly the same, but let's have a bit of nuance. What if you are a human?
Yeah, well, and I think the other thing about that, it's that, yeah, I'll get you to 10K months following the plan because I did it myself. That's not real expertise. Because if you are a great business consultant and great at business development, you can adapt a framework to every single person you meet to help them. And so I think this message of, I've been railing on this lately, like the whole, you only have to be one step ahead of your client it's just not true, because then you can only teach them what you know. And they aren't the same as you, and they don't have the same experience. And so, yeah, that's hugely problematic.
It always makes me laugh because a number of my clients earn more than me. They have bigger businesses than me. I'm not just teaching them
me too.
how to build a certain business. I'm here as a coach, so I'm here to, you know, pick up on the gaps and pick them up on their negative thought patterns or help them, you know, work on their mindset or all of these things. Like that I just have to be good at doing that. I don't necessarily have to be a step ahead of where they are in their business because our businesses are completely different.
Yep. Yeah, you have to like own, I call it own your only, right? You have to like own what makes you the only person that can do what you do, owning that expertise, because that's a key ingredient to messaging, but it also helps you just kind of stay in your lane and be like, you know what? I am really good at providing this. It gets this kind of result for my client. And that's what I'm going to do.
That is something that definitely my clients and my audience struggle with, is owning that expertise. And many of them are, you know, very highly educated, very experienced, tons of corporate experience, bringing all this stuff into the online space with them. And sometimes I think it gets a little bit lost because you're in the online space and you see all these people with big numbers and results and feel a bit like, ooh. And sometimes I've worked with clients for a period of time and then they'll just mention something random about their experience. I'm like, why did I not know this? Because if I don't know this, potential clients don't know this. And that could be the difference between them hiring you, right? Because you're literally showing your credentials and what you are amazing at.
Exactly.
Yeah, it just baffles me every time that people get so bowled over with the numbers, but it's owning what you are good at and being able to own it and be proud of it and say, really good at this and I can help you too.
Yeah. And then you can communicate that. Like, that's the next step. Like, the first step is I really do feel like it's a rebellious act to claim your expertise. But then it's like this monumental task in order to communicate it so that other people know about you, know that you exist.
So what are some of the things that you come across with your clients that are a barrier to that? Is it just that they don't understand how to articulate it, or are they so close to it that they just know what they do and they can't really put it out there?
Yeah. Well, I think one thought that gets in people's way is, I should be able to do this myself. Like, I'm super smart. Like, I love what I do. I am really good at it. So I should be able to do this myself. And then they spend 2 to 3 years trying to do it for themselves and getting mixed results until one day they're like, oh, wait, I can't do this myself. It is holding me back. It's holding me back from writing a sales page that's actually good instead of like the one that I have that's disappointing me and I'm afraid to send people to. It's holding me back from pitching myself for podcasts because I don't know what to say. It's holding me back from marketing consistently or emailing my people consistently because I don't know how to lead them so that they want to work with me. And that I should be able to do it myself. I have heard it so many times, or it's little sister, I can do this for other people, but I can't do this for myself. So I should be able to do this for myself. And it's like, we are so close to our message. We can't see it clearly. We're still speaking in our expert or coach language when we are speaking to people, and they don't get it because they're not as obsessed with your solution as you are. They are obsessed with themselves. So we have to learn how to translate our expertise into messaging that actually matters to them.
I have a client and she will be listening to this and I know she's going to laugh now because she is so experienced at what she does. She's been, doing it for 20 years, and then she will write a post and I say to her, now write it to a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
Like, to bring it back down to the basics, because it's so easy for her because she understands all of the concepts. She's had all of the training. I'm like, the people you're talking to, they care about their problem. And if they read that, they don't feel seen or understood. They don't know that you help them solve their problem because you're talking about your process, which is really interesting, but they can't see themselves in it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. They don't know what your process does.
Yeah,
right?
It is. They don't know what it does.
Yeah, they don't know how it actually helps them. And I think we expect them to make that connection because we've made that connection. So we go in and we're like, I have this great process that does A, B, and C. And they're like, great. I don't know what that's going to actually do for me, or if it's for me at all, or if you solve this problem that I have. Like, I don't know because you're not speaking their language at all. And yeah, and it causes that disconnection of like, I don't know if you're for me or not.
I see it a lot with people operating in spaces like EFT and NLP, both of which I do myself, but they think that's what they're selling. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm an EFT practitioner, so, sign up with me if you want some EFT. And people are like, oh, okay, great. But if it's like, I'm an EFT practitioner, I help you to solve this specific problem that you've got, people are like, oh, okay, now I understand. I've made the connection.
Yeah. You can't be obsessed with your tool. Like, you just can't. Like, I've worked with coaches before and they're like, well, I coach them to do this and that. And I'm like, it's not about the coaching. They don't want to buy coaching. They don't want to buy EFT, right? Like, they just don't. That's not what they're here for.
They want the outcome. And I love it because we are so close to it and we do get so passionate about what we do. So is that a definite benefit for you? You come in, say, to work with your clients and you're like, okay, I'm neutral. I'm just going to look at facts.
Well, I think for me, the way I work with clients is I've created a process now that I'm talking about my process where it's like all my clients have to do is answer questions, spit out their like ideas. And then I go through and I'm like, that's interesting, but I don't understand it. What do you mean by this? Let's go deeper here. If they do this, what's happening? So I'm able to ask all of these questions and then take all of that raw material and structure it into a message that they can use in their business across all the touch points. But all they have to do finally is just show up and on me. And then I'm able to actually take that, structure it, create their 3-word rebellion, create their client journey where all of their marketing and copy comes from, help them like distill their stories in a way that matters and supports that client decision journey. So that's really like where my brilliance is. And it's for them, it's so relieving to have somebody just to turn this over to who has that outside perspective, who can ask the questions, who is unafraid to be like, dude, I don't understand this. Please tell me more.
I love it because a high proportion of my listeners will be INFJ. And when you're like, they can just word vomit on me and then I make sense of it. They're all like, yes, this is what I need because it's just what we do. We just go like, blah. Does that make sense? And sometimes it does. Sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah. And for me, it's always like, I kind of see it like as a word cloud in my head where I'm like, well, if you move this over here and put this with this, then this is going to make more sense or this is going to resonate better because of who your people are. So it's just like, for me, it's all about like taking that and like applying the structure and framework to it so that it's digestible to other human beings and resonates with your right client.
Which is what we all want.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes.
So how did it get distilled down into a 3-word rebellion? From all of that work and all of your experience, what was it in particular about 3 that you were like, this is the sweet spot?
Yeah. So the idea of the 3-word rebellion is to create a message that encapsulates the change you want to create for your people, that your people can rally behind, that they can spread. And really the inspiration for this came from successful entrepreneurs and also from like social movements, because I was hearing things like start with why. Black Lives Matter, the 5-second rule, make America great again. All of these phrases that were intended for their audience. And it was so easy to spread them and to talk about them. They were also curiosity provoking. So for me, it was like, well, I wonder, could I take questions from social movement theory about like, what are you rebelling against? What's the change you want to create? Have people just free write on those and then really create this sticky message that could then become synonymous with a person's business, that they could actually be known for, a phrase that they could actually own and be the only for.
I listened to a podcast a few weeks ago. I can't even remember which podcast it was or who came on it. But what I remember is when the person introduced themselves and what they did, it was so succinct and compelling and different. It wasn't just like you say, I help coaches make 10K a month doing blah, 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 blah. Like it was, I don't know what it was about it, but I remember thinking, oh, that's good. Because they just stood out and there was no question and no doubt of exactly what they did, who they helped, and what results someone got in, 2 sentences.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I feel, well, and we live in a time where it is so noisy out there, right? Yankovic, the research group, did a study back in 2007 that we see between 3,000 and 20,000 marketing messages a day.
Oh.
I wouldn't even know what it is now. And according to the American Advertising Association, we can only actually process about 100 marketing messages. So we are inundated. So if you want to cut through the noise, having those 3 words that make people go like, that's interesting, tell me more, or make them start Googling. Because I remember when I first heard start with why, I was like, cool, start with why. Well, what's my why? oh, I better figure out what my why is. And so here I am going down the rabbit hole of Simon Sinek and all of his work because he caught my attention with a phrase that made me think about myself. And that's really the brilliance of a three-word rebellion.
And that whole start with why, I mean, I read that book back in about 2015, I think. And then it was really big in the online space around then and a little bit later. I think it's not quite as popular now, but it was a big thing. And everyone was like, oh, what's your why? And before you do anything, you've got to know what your why is, which, is a good thing to know. But it became such a thing that any group program, any coach everyone was just talking about it and everyone knew what it meant. Everyone knew. It's like, what's your why? People were like, oh yeah, I've got to have a why. Like, yeah, here it is.
Yeah. It's that he reached a critical mass with that message where it just took on a whole life of its own and was part of like the cultural zeitgeist, which, I mean, doesn't happen. I mean, I think it's hard to make that happen, but it really shows the power of having a message that resonates with a group of people and makes them curious and makes them think about themselves and how it applies. Like I love my three-word rebellion is three-word rebellion. And people are always like, gee, I wonder what my 3 words are. That's the question I want you to be asking yourself.
And all of the examples that you've given, obviously your own and Simon Sinek and Mel Robbins, we touched on there, they're simple. They're not trying to be fancy or
clever.
No, they're all quite like single syllable, just, go for it. And I think sometimes we can do that. We can feel like we've got to put something clever in or think of a good word to put here and make it like sound sexy. But actually it just confuses people.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a fan of having a really good verb in three-word rebellions. Sometimes a verb that's a little unusual, off the beaten track, because that helps it stand out. But for most of the time, the 3 words rebellions I help create, they're pretty simple. Like one of them, Michelle Evans, like profit without worry. That's simple.
Yeah.
My client, Casey Christopher, who is a registered dietitian, she helps women with the courage to trust themselves around food, the courage to trust themselves in their body, to create a healthy relationship with their body. But courage, that was the core of the change she creates. She gives them the courage to trust. And that message has been serving her well. And it's simple. It's simple. It's curiosity provoking. It is easy to remember, which is so important.
And as you were saying it, and then you said, she's in the health space, and I could just see myself being like, oh, I don't trust myself to not eat that whole packet of whatever. So it's, there's that emotional connection and it completely resonates to people's everyday life.
Yeah. Yeah. And because of that message, it's so much easier for her to get clients who are qualified. Like she gets on the sales call, they've read her stuff, they've already bought in, and it's really about fit. And that's where we want to get to. Like our message should be getting people ready for our work. So when they show up, they're like, I just want to know, are we a good fit together? Yeah. Because I'm already bought into what you do.
Which is the dream. That is perfect.
It's amazing. It's amazing. I love it when it happens.
I'm gonna round up on that because I don't think we could finish talking about it in a better way. Mm-hmm. But Michelle, obviously, thank you for joining us. It's always a pleasure to chat with you. Of course, I'm going to ask you which book you would recommend for my audience of highly sensitive, empathic introverts who are looking to grow and scale their online business.
Yes. So obviously I would recommend the 3-word rebellion book.
So would I.
If you've heard this and you're like, I want to get started with my message, the book is a great place to start, get familiar with the framework. And then a book that I'm reading right now that has been particularly impactful is The Gap and the Gain by Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan. And basically what the argument of this book is we're either in 2 modes. We're either in the gap where we're thinking about what we don't have, where we're comparing our now to the future. So it's like, oh, I want to be at, I don't know, $250,000 revenue, but I'm only at 100,000. And that makes us feel terrible, right? It feels like we're not enough. And in this book, he says we should be focusing on the gain, that you measure backwards. So instead of thinking about where you are, like where you want to be, you think about, okay, here I am right now. Where was I 90 days ago? Where was I a year ago? Where was I 10 years ago? So that you can see all the progress that you made, which makes it easier to focus on your goals. So I really am enjoying that book because I realize I spent some time in the gap. I think as entrepreneurs, we all do, thinking about what we're lacking, thinking about the audience we don't have, thinking about the sales we don't have, instead of being like, oh no, look at like, I was able to raise my price. I'm working with more of the right people now than ever before. So I love that concept so much.
I am going to read that book. I might even buy it for all of my clients. I am very strict with clients about sharing wins, like note down your wins so that you have this bank so you can go back if you do find yourself in the gap, as they would say, to be like, oh, actually look at everything that I've achieved rather than focusing on what you haven't, because for our mindset, that is so important. And that's what I see with the people, you know, in any industry that really, really succeed is they appreciate what they've done. They are proud of what they've achieved. And yes, you can still want more, but actually owning what you've done so far is key.
Yes.
Oh, I'm going to read it. I love it. Michelle, thank you. I'm going to drop all of your links in the show notes so everyone can connect with you there and find their own 3-word rebellion. Thank you so much for sharing with us today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Ambitious Introvert Podcast with me, Emma-Louise Parks. If you enjoy this show, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review on iTunes. As a thank you, one lucky reviewer each month will win a 60-minute one-on-one coaching session with me, where you'll get the clarity and confidence to attract your ideal clients. And if you know someone who could benefit from listening to the show, then please do share and help me reach as many fellow ambitious introverts as possible.